All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to recap the early window games, and I'll give you my thoughts on all of them. So let's get right into actually the first game, and we'll get the Giants out of the way first because they actually picked up a win yesterday, 14-7 over the Washington Commanders, and it was going to be a tough game. Picked them in the spread pool, said, you know what, this is a game that they are going to win because they own Washington. And that's exactly what happened. They did win, although they didn't dominate Washington. I mean, the defense played very well. The offense, they scored 14 points in the second quarter, and that was basically it. But then it got dicey at the end. Because Terry McLaurin, scored a touchdown, but he was touched before, he got into the end zone. Brian Robinson had a touchdown in this game, so that got Washington on the board. But in the second quarter, I mean, listen, that was a great second quarter. The Giants, 8 plays, 98 yards, 4.5 minutes. Go down the field. Tyrod Taylor connected with Darren Waller, so he had his first touchdown of the season. And then Tyrod Taylor connected with Saquon Barkley for 32 yards. And the Giants got their second touchdown. That was 2 plays, 48 yards. And then Washington in the third quarter, 6 plays, 21 yards, 248. And Brian Robinson, from 4 yards, outscored there. Turnovers costed the Giants in this game. Sterling Shepard, who I was with yesterday, no one was really confident with him returning punts. And sure enough, and they even said it on the broadcast, and sure enough, he fumbled a punt. And then Saquon Barkley fumbled in this game as well. So if that doesn't happen, Washington probably doesn't do anything yesterday. But but the important thing is the Giants got the win. They get to 2-5. Washington still has a better record than them, but at least the Giants were able to win a game finally. Waller was their leading receiver. He had 98 yards receiving and a touchdown. Jalen Hyatt had 2 receptions for 75 yards, but finally throwing the ball deep. They actually had time to do that at points during the game. Barkley, 3 receptions for 41 yards. Obviously, the 32-yard reception was his longest reception of the game. Wan'Dale Robinson, 1 reception for 22 yards. Slayton, 1 for 22. A good game by the Giants. Their defense continues to play well these last 2 weeks. As for Sam Howell, he threw a pick, had no touchdowns in this game, threw for 249. Tyrod Taylor, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he threw for 279. So he didn't turn the ball over yesterday, but Shepard and Barkley did. Washington only ran the ball for 76 yards. Terry McLaurin, he had a good game, 90 receiving yards, 6 receptions. Logan Thomas had 4 for 51. But Giants get the win. We'll see what happens next week. Does Daniel Jones come back? They'll be playing the Jets, the Battle for MetLife, the Snoopy Bowl, whatever you want to call it. At least the Giants were able to, get a win. Defense has looked good the last couple weeks, so that's definitely something to be encouraged about moving forward. So that's my thoughts on that. Ravens and the Lions. So this game, a lot of people thought it was going to be a good game, and it just was not at all, not even close. The Ravens dominated this game. They outscored the Lions 28-0 in the first half. Lions got a touchdown in the fourth quarter. Jared Goff threw the ball 53 times, 284 passing yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. They ran the ball for 84 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs had a touchdown in this game. Amon-Ra St. Brown was their leading receiver, 13 receptions for 102. But, they just couldn't get anything going. Lamar Jackson had a great game. 21-27, 357, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Gus Edwards was their leading rusher, 64 yards rushing and a touchdown. Lamar Jackson had a rushing touchdown in this game. Gus Edwards actually ended up being their leading receiver. He had 1 reception for 80 yards. And then Zay Flowers had 4 for 75. Mark Andrews, another tight end on National Tight Ends Day, 4 receptions for 63 yards and 2 touchdowns. Odell Beckham Jr. had 5 for 49. But there was a couple of plays the Lions could have had Lamar when they were in the red zone, and the Lions defense just couldn't get him down. and he was able to improvise. And it was on the touchdown to Nelson Aguilar, actually. Yeah, and yeah, they just could not get Lamar down. But that was a big win. Well, it was a big win for the Ravens, a great win for the Ravens. But yeah, the Lions. Yeah, and we just talked about them last week. Being Super Bowl contenders, and they very well still can be. But again, same thing with the Dolphins. You're gonna have to go on the road and beat some of these better teams, and they went up against the Ravens team that's pretty good, although it has their flaws as well. And they got dominated. They really did. I mean, the Ravens, they just went up and down the field on them like it was nothing. And, yeah. And listen, with the Ravens, I mean, that's the good Ravens. But, from week to week, you really don't know what Ravens team you're going to get because, obviously they lost to the Colts at home earlier in the year in overtime, and they almost let the Titans come back last week. So, you don't know what you're going to get from the Ravens week to week. But they are a good team, and they showed that yesterday. All right, so let's get to the best game of the day, and that's the Bears and the Raiders. Bears with Tyson Bagent, and then with the Raiders, you had Brian Hoyer, and Aiden O'Connell actually came in at one point. Bears dominating 30-12. I mean, I listen, the Raiders coming in, I thought, you know what, they got the better offense. They should be able to win this game. But that was not the case. The Bears dominated this game. Brian Hoyer was terrible, 17-32, 129, no touchdowns and 2 picks. Aiden O'Connell, he came in, he threw a pick, 10 for 13, 75 yards, had a touchdown. But yeah, he threw a pick. Yeah, they ran the ball for 39 yards. Josh Jacobs was their leading rusher. Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers both had 7 receptions. Devontae Adams had 57 yards receiving. Jacoby Myers had 50, and he had a touchdown. So, I mean, he continues to have a good season for them. But, yeah, Raiders were bad. Tyson Bagent, I mean, did what he was supposed to do. He managed the game, 21-29, 162, and a touchdown. Deontay Foreman was the MVP of this game for the Bears. He had 16 carries for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he also had a receiving touchdown as well. DJ Moore was their leading receiver with 54 yards. And yeah, the Bears, they win that game 30-12, and guess what? They will be playing on Sunday night next week. We might be seeing Tyson Bagent on Sunday night unless Justin Fields comes back next week. But, yeah, it's going to be Tyson Bagent possibly versus Justin Herbert, so get ready for it. It's going to be great. These Sunday night games have been awesome. I mean, the game last night was, it was okay, I guess, but, I mean, between the Giants and the Bills and now, obviously last night's game sandwiched in between it, but now we might be getting Tyson Bagent against Justin Herbert. So, get ready for that. Next game, this game actually ended up being really good. The Browns and the Colts. Browns winning 39-38. So they held the 49ers to 17 points, and then they 38 points by the Colts. Very interesting game, to say the least. So Deshaun Watson threw a horrible interception in this game. Got taken out. Apparently he didn't have an injury. He was cleared, but they just didn't put him back in the game. So PJ Walker ended, at least that's what I was told. But yeah, left the game with an injury after taking a huge hit. But then apparently could have came back in the game, but they just didn't go back to him. But PJ Walker, he ended up stepping in 15 of 32, 178 yards. And a pick, no touchdowns. Jerome Ford was their leading rusher. He had a 69-yard touchdown run early in the game. Kareem Hunt had 2 rushing touchdowns. He ran the ball for 31 yards. The leading receiver was actually Elijah Moore. He had 59 yards receiving. And Njoku had 54. Amari Cooper, 2 for 22. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, 2 for 22 as well. And then as for the Colts, Gardner Minshew had a pretty good game. 15-23, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Jonathan Taylor was their leading rusher. He had 75 yards rushing and a touchdown. Zach Moss had 57 yards rushing. They both had 18 carries in this game. So they got a nice 1-2 combination there with those two guys because Zach Moss has been running the football well for them. Josh Downs, he was their leading receiver. He had 5 receptions for 125 and a touchdown. Michael Pittman had 2 for 83 and a touchdown. He had that big 75-yard touchdown in the game. Alec Pierce had 3 for 53, and Jonathan Taylor had 3 for 45. So the scoring in this game, because there was a lot of it. So Jerome Ford, he had that 69-yard touchdown. Minshew connected with Josh Downs for a 59-yard touchdown. Then he had a rushing touchdown in this game as well. This was all in the first quarter. So Colts were up 14-7 at the end of the first quarter. And then a direct snap to Kareem Hunt in the second quarter, and that's how they got their second touchdown. Dustin Hopkins kicked a field goal, so that put them up 17-14. The Browns. Gardner Minshew later in the game had a 4-yard scramble for a touchdown, put them up 21-17. Browns had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Myles Garrett responsible for that, so that put them up 24-21. They kicked a field goal, so it was 27-21 at the half. Then in the third quarter, Dustin Hopkins kicked a 54-yard field goal, put them up 30-21. Jonathan Taylor from 5 yards out had a touchdown. Colts went 8 plays, 70 yards to get the touchdown, so that was 30-28. Matt Gay kicked a field goal in the fourth quarter to put them up 31-30. Dustin Hopkins kicked a 58-yard field goal, which I think was like the longest of his career. So that led to it being 33-31. Then Gardner Minshew to Michael Pittman for 75 yards. That put them up 38-33. And then Kareem Hunt had a touchdown late in the game, very late in the game. And that put the Browns up 39-38. And that ended up being the final score there. So, Browns win a shootout. They improved to 4-2. And the Colts dropped to 3-4. So we got 2 more games here, so we'll run through them quickly. Patriots 29-25 over the Bills. I just, how? Like, the Bills just played an ugly game. Josh Allen threw a pick early in this game, and that led to the Patriots going up 10-0 at the end of the first quarter. And once again, the Bills, they finally wake up, but it's, in the fourth quarter. They scored 2 touchdowns. They put themselves up 25-22. And Mac Jones led a drive, 8 plays, 69 yards down the field, connected with Mike Gesicki for the go-ahead touchdown. That put them up 29-25. And that ended up being the final score, and the Bills lose. And, they have not looked good the last couple of weeks offensively. They just really, it's been taking them so long to get going. And, they didn't run the football well. Dolan Kincaid was their leading receiver. Diggs had a touchdown. James Cook had a receiving touchdown. But, once again, the Bills' offense just couldn't get it going. But that's a big win for the Patriots. Mac Jones had a good game, 25-30, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So, listen, I said last week, doesn't look like the guy, but, at least for this week, he had a good game. And that's a big win for the Patriots, gets them back on track. And an unlikely win against the Bills. And then the last game here, Falcons and the Bucs. Falcons improved to 4-3. They win 16-13 over the Bucs. Baker Mayfield, 27-42, 275, 1 touchdown and a pick. The Bucs just really couldn't run the ball. Mike Evans was their leading receiver. He had that long touchdown early to tie the game, 40-yard touchdown. So, you thought maybe the Bucs would get back on track because the Falcons, last week, Desmond Ridder, 3 turnovers. But that wasn't the case. He didn't have any interceptions in this game. Drake London ended up being their leading receiver. But, ever since I came out with that video talking about the Bucs, they have not looked good at all. They were bad against the Lions, and they were bad in this game too. Younghoe Koo kicked a walk-off field goal at the end, 51 yards out. Falcons are actually in first place in the South, which is, and I counted them out. So right now they lead the South. But during the week, we'll try to go into detail with more of these games, because there's things to talk about within some of them, especially, Bills and Patriots, go into more detail with that. But obviously, I just want to run through the scores. But, so that's pretty much it with this segment. So in the next segment, we are going to go over the the late window games. Once again, I want to remind you guys, I got to get it back up here, with the Patreon, of course. So obviously, to get your comments recognized, and to tip or donate, make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. That's the link right there, and it's on the ticker below as well. And then for the bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this live broadcast, make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network, and that is where you can find all the exclusive content on, for all the podcasts here on the GSMC Sports Network. So with that, we are going to take our second break of the show, and then when we come back, we will go through the late games. We'll talk about them in the third part of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.